What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the AMS Podcast. I am your host, Adrian Michael Soto, discussing things about films past, present, and future. Today's episode is going to be, excuse me, today's episode is going to be dealing with, had to adjust the ceiling fan here. This microphone picks up stuff. I wanted to talk about animated films. And this weekend, and I'll show you in just a second, is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. And if you all are superhero fans, I highly recommend it. Your Spider-Man fans also highly recommend it. The first one is a very amazing film, and just the story behind it and just the plot and the meaning of it is the animation is really, really well. And I'm going to show you this video and going to play it here. This is a video done by Solmon Society. I'm not going to play the sound over it. I'm going to just let it play in the background. It goes as far as back in 1833. And as you can see here, it reaches up to 2017. So back then, in the days of animation, it was just images, drawings, sketches. Excuse me, not like your traditional Pixar movies, movies of the Minions, and this was people's form of entertainment. And as you see with movies nowadays, it doesn't provide sound of any kind. And it's one of those that we're traveling now to 1990. You get more color imagery and hand drawn animation. And I'll go into detail describing. If you're familiar with that character, you know it started there, and I believe the company continued to create all sorts of different other things. Warner Brothers would later join in, and as I'm watching this with you all, this is kind of fascinating too, because then this is the Three Little Pigs, and it's just interesting to watch. We're familiar with this character and those other seven characters. Then we start going into the 1940s, and Disney had a vast majority of animation, and they're the ones to have popularized it. And their encyclopedia is going through just the gist of everything. There you see Peter Pan, Lady and the Tramp, and now it goes into more color scheme, and still hand-drawn animation. Computer effects, I would assume, weren't into the later 80s, 90s, as we'll probably see. And just Disney is now currently celebrating 100 years of their company, and amongst that, you get other forms and styles of animation, and just the storytelling overall has just been very interesting. And the print is small. I'm going to try and minimize myself. And we start going into the 1990s. And if you're all familiar with any of these, 1991, and I would say one of my favorite animated films, Aladdin. Then you start going into the later 90s, claymation with The Nightmare Before Christmas, as you saw, The Lion King. Then along came Pixar. And for what you've seen thus far, then Disney still continued with their animation and different types of storytelling, Warner Brothers, to all my 90s people out there that grew up with Space Jam. And then along came Hercules. Then there was other styles of animation. I believe this is DreamWorks, Ants, and they did the Prince. This is the Prince of Egypt, Mulan. This is the late 90s, and it just continues to improve because then Pixar would continue to progress the Iron Giant, which is one of my favorite movies as a kid growing up. You had Tarzan, then the Toy Story sequels series continued. This is Chicken Run, and then Disney changed their animation a little bit into the late 2000s. That was The Emperor's New Groove. And then here comes Pixar again with Monsters Inc. Then along came Shrek in 2001. Then we proceeded with Ice Age, the 3D animation and style. And I would say it was a quick glimpse of Lilo and Stitch. And Disney would try their style as much as they could. And I think they had more success with Pixar, as you see here. And excuse me if I don't know all Wallace and Gromit. If I don't know all the names, this is the Corpse Bride, I believe. And once Disney partnered with that, with Pixar, I would see more success there. Then DreamWorks continued their style with Kung Fu Panda, Up, Wally, and then tried to return with The Princess and the Frog, Coraline. And overall, then you have How to Train Your Dragon, the continued Toy Story, Tangled, Rango, I believe, with Johnny Depp. Then you get, it's going quick. I'm just trying to name off the names here. You get the Lego Movie, Big Hero 6, Pixar once again, the Lego Batman movie. So as you can see, the history of animated movies has gone to just for a vast majority. And I kind of wanted to pose the question or the ideal of what makes a good animated film. And obviously, like any regular animated film, I mean, any regular real film, excuse me, you obviously need the story, you need the characters, you need the plot, whether that be action, sci-fi, horror, family, comedy. Then you need the protagonist, antagonist, the side characters, and the same goes for animated movies. So as we proceed here with animated, I wanted to show you all the theme. Designing is an art all in itself for the story. And I'll go into details on each of the studios that have done this far. The many characters you can relate from one another within the story, whether that be the main character, and I'll reference someone like Po from Kung Fu Panda. He's a panda who wants to do kung fu, but obviously he's treated differently because he's a panda. And in real life, you see that as you're treated differently because you look different from somebody else who's expected to do that certain thing in life. And just because you look different doesn't mean you're not able to do that exact same thing that that other person was meant to do, whether that be a sport, a job, anything in life. And besides the effects, the voice acting, the story's going to bring in the audience. And a lot of these animated movies obviously started with original ideas or stuff from fairy tales and folklore. And if you know in particular specific ones, mention in the comments below. And the type of style, as you saw in that video I just shared you all, the style of animation, you had the 2D, the drawing, 3D animation, stop motion, CGI, claymation, and all those have been different styles throughout the years. As I referenced, Disney is celebrating 100 years, and I grew up with those films as a kid, watching them, and I'll reference some in particular as to reason why. And overall, my thoughts with the many main characters, you also have the side characters and the animated styles, the one movies and the franchises of the animated movies, and all of that combined. It's that didn't make sense as I'm reading it now, but what I was trying to get at is no matter no matter what, I'm gonna see a movie firsthand, and whether that be the first time if I would have seen a movie called Toy Story and it had the voices of Tim Allen, Tom Hanks, um, I drew a blank on the rest of them, but getting to the point of it's about a toy being in charge and caring about a kid that has been a part of his life, and he gets jealous of someone new coming in taking over and him being ignored. And that being a character in Woody, he had his entire story arc change and grow from 4 different films. And if you've all seen all 4 films, you'll see he started completely different from the first film, and his story arc ended the completely different in the 4th film. And so the way you see it is just so many characters to name from that I could go off the top of my head. Shrek is a person who, or a character, a ogre who wanted to be left alone and is caught in something that doesn't want to be involved, but then realizes he meets someone that he falls in love with, but then realizes that, wait, an ogre or someone like me can't fall in love with somebody like her. She's completely different. But then realizes, spoiler alert on a 20 plus year old movie, she becomes an ogre. So at first he was thinking to himself that he was expecting that nobody's gonna like him for who he is because he's different, and realizes that someone in Fiona is someone different and willing to accept. Just because she became an ogre doesn't mean that she can't fall in love with someone who's the exact same way and cares about her. And that, I believe, also was 4 films as well. So let's continue here. And the reason why I'm bringing up, once again, as I mentioned, this is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, the sequel to the 2018 film. Like I said, it's for my comic book fans, my Spider-Man fans. This is the introduction of Miles Morales, who came out in the comic books in 2011, I believe. He is a Afro American Latino in Bronx. Correct me if I'm wrong. And it leads to him going into meeting alternate reality versions of other Spider-Man. And this sequel the style and animation just looks really good. I mean that like 100%. On a scale of 1 to 10, the style and animation differs completely from all the other movies I'm going to reference in a little bit here. And overall, it just leaves you in awe. And like I said, you get introduced to a vast majority of characters that not just you're not in touch with, or you're not just thinking of the main character, Miles Morales. As you see next to him is Gwen Stacy, who is Spider Woman, and who is also in Marvel Comics. There's just so many characters, and it got nominated. Oh, it won for Best Animated Film. And this weekend, you'll expect to hear the praise of this movie. And I would not be surprised that it gets nominated for a lot of film awards. So as we proceed here, I'm going to minimize myself so you can see it. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse comes from Sony Pictures, and Sony Pictures, as you can see here, has done films like Open Season, Surf's Up, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs series, Hotel Transylvania, Arthur Christmas, The Smurfs, Emoji Movie, The Angry Birds, Peter Rabbit. And overall, some of these have had their fair share of success, and the style of animation, as you can see, is a little bit different, and it's kind of like the style of you saw the image of the Spider-Man one. So this is the vast library of movies that they've done. I may have missed some when I was looking up the images and things like that. So Sony Pictures is a part of the animation game. And as we kind of continue here, we'll go into older studios that have been different. And DreamWorks is a part of Universal Pictures. And as you see here, it first started off with Shrek. Then you have Kung Fu Panda, Over the Hedge, Madagascar, Spirit, Penguins of Madagascar, Ants, Monsters, I believe, Road to El Dorado, or El Dorado, The Prince of Egypt, Flushed Away. I'm trying to remember. It's a one about a bee. Jerry Seinfeld is a bee. Good movie, from what I remember. And as you see, that's the way the animation styles are done there. If you've seen all these movies, then you know what I'm talking about in that. Then Universal Studios decided to create a second branch by the name of Illumination. And if you recognize three yellow characters who have become a popular brand within themselves, the Minions, you have the Despicable Me franchise, the Minions films. They did a version of The Grinch, and they did, I think the movie is called Sing, where the animals are singing, Secret Life of Pets. And I believe that they're still continuing to make more. But as you can see, the vast majority of different films that I've named off here with different voice acting, stories, and whether you all have liked them, not liked them, or continue to watch them, and to anyone that have younger kids now that watch the movies like the Minions themselves, and they've caught the attention of entire generations. I think the first one came out in 2011. I might be wrong on that, but that's two studios within a company, a part of Universal Pictures, and you can definitely see all of these characters at those theme parks. As we proceed here, Warner Brothers Pictures, as it's going to be on the corner on the right where you see a small version of Superman. They started off with cartoon animation. They created the Looney Tunes, all of the DC comics, and they then created animated films for the the Looney Tunes characters. There's a vast library, majority of animated films for DC Comics. I recommend to all my comic book fans out there to check out any of the DC films that they've made. They're very entertaining. There's too many to name off, but you understand my point. And the one that's above me, as you see, I'm small here. These were some films that came out in the 90s: Osmosis Jones, Looney Tunes Back in Action, Quest for Camelot, Space Jam, The Iron Giant. Then on the other end, you have films that came were the Lego movie, Lego Batman. s- I don't remember the ones with the owls, but the one of the penguin is Happy Feet. And Warner Brothers is also now currently celebrating 100 years of the studio itself. One thing to kind of quick mention, I highly recommend, if you are subscribed to Max, also formerly known as HBO Max, if you are a film fanatic, check out a series, a documentary series on the 100 years of Warner Brothers. And it is very entertaining. It gives you the history of it. Whoops. Give me just a second. Sorry. It's one of those that it leaves you in awe, and it's very, very entertaining to see. And as we proceed here, the Mouse House itself, as you saw, you have the vast majority of Disney hand drawn animation, and then they separated themselves a little bit later on with films like Moana, Frozen, Tangled, Princess and the Frog, and they are partnered with Pixar. And you can name all of these movies and characters off of your list here, and it's pretty much one of those that it ends up being just a vast list that you know from start to finish. As I said, I grew up with all of the films in the 90s: The Lion King, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, and I will show my children one day all of these films, and even the films from Pixar, which have left different stories and characters that are memories that last with you as actual human actors. Their characters and the storytelling last with you as well. And overall, it's Disney is celebrating, as I said, repeating myself, 100 years, and it's their stories continue, and they continue to bring more new characters to introduce in the vast majority. And as I kind of conclude here in this episode, what is your favorite character from the vast majority of animated films from A to Z, all the movie studios? You have the 2000s, the 2010s, the 2020s, the early 2000s, the 90s, the 80s. Um, all of these characters, like I said, have left a lasting memory on you in some form or fashion. You might not like them, but you enjoy watching the movies. I know someone that he told, and they have a good friend said that he doesn't care for the Despicable Me movies, but his son does because of those minions, and it's meant for children. And like I said, it's fine. You have all these characters, even the ones that are the princess characters as well. And the list can go on and on. It's just so fascinating to see, and the style and animation from all of what these movie studios have done thus far. And as we proceed to the last one, my last bit of this episode, um, best animated movies of all time. I have 10 things here. I'm not going to rank them in any form or fashion. I'm going to just list 10 off the top of my head that come to mind. And it's one of those, I'm going to go with Aladdin, the 90s Aladdin, The Lion King, Toy Story 3, The Iron Giant, Kung Fu Panda, Coco, ugh, The Incredibles, man, Shrek, hmm, I'm going to say Hercules and Lilo and Stitch. And I'm not ranking any of them in order. I just had to reference. But overall, each of these movies, I could go long in the style. As I said, they uh, like if you've seen my very first episode, why do we watch movies? We watch them for the experience to get out and be a part of this world. Hence, another animated movie I didn't reference, but it basically just leaves you in awe and it leaves a message. The message can be about family, discovering yourself, following your dreams, not giving up on yourself. And just because you look different doesn't mean you can't be who you are. And that's what a lot of these movies are. And I'd say it's a part of me that, um, like I said, all these people that are behind the scenes in creating these movies, they created this story. And there's even more people involved in animating stuff because it takes about 2 to 3 years before it comes out. And they still have to do production. And it just has always left me awe inspiring. And all these movies were a part of my childhood. And anyone out there who share the same thoughts as me that grew up with watching these kinds of films when you were younger, or you saw them but you saw other movies like sci-fi, action, horror, suspense, and other things as well. But like I said, movies are a part of us, and the they define us in certain ways. And I would say they all these animated movies have heart to them. They're kind, the stories that they bring you, and it basically leaves you just awe-inspired, and you end up watching it once, you end up watching it 100 times, 1,000 times, or you show your kids one day, or younger family members that have never seen these movies, and they're in awe, and they become fans of all these characters as well. So, as I said, for the main purpose of this was to reference the amazing Spider-Man movie, Across the Spider-Verse, that's coming out this weekend. It's one that will leave you, like I said, it's going to be for anyone who's Spider-Man fan, comic book fan, and animated fan. It's a family movie, but from what I've been told, the new sequel is very entertaining. Excuse me. It's a little bit sad, as all of these animated movies are, and haven't seen it yet, but once I see it, you'll see my review hopefully soon on the channel. And just all of these movies leave you with different kind of emotions. And like I said, I enjoyed seeing all of these movies, and I'll continue to watch them down the road again in the future, or any future up and coming animated movies that I'll just see once, or I'll show my future children one day. Who's to know? And just depending on what story each of these movie studios brings. And yeah, animated movies is a film genre that is for all ages, ethnicities, backgrounds, generations. It's for everybody. And that's been it, guys, for today's episode of animated movies. Let me know your all thoughts, what you think of how you perceive animated movies, what draws you in. Name me your favorite animated movies, movies that you didn't like or you can't wait to see. Are you going to check out the amazing, not the Amazing Spider-Man, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse? Let me know in the comments below. Check out previous episodes of the AMS podcast. And that's been it, guys. Thank you all so much for watching. I'm your host, Adrian Michael Soto, discussing things about films past, present, and future. I will see you all next time. Bye bye for now.